Perfect, perfect. So I am so glad that you are here with us today. I can't wait for my audience to be able to have an opportunity to hear this discussion today. So we're just gonna dive in, okay?
I'm looking forward to it. Thank you for
All
having me.
right, all right. So you've had the opportunity of, surrounding yourself by performing artists, for whatever capacity. So, what would you say would be some of those common battles that those artists may face that we will never even begin to know about?
Well, there's a big one of uncertainty because
Mm,
it's not when a career in the performing arts, especially, operates more on a gig to gig rather than a job like in a corporate world where you work at one company for a number of years and maybe get recommendation and get hired in another company for a long time. With actors, especially, it's gig to gig, and you don't know because there's no security. There's no job security. I would say that's the biggest thing too is lack of job security is the biggest
wow.
factor for those in a performing arts space because you don't have there's no guarantee because
Wow.
you could
Wow.
even be in a Broadway show or lead in a TV series, but that the show could end, the series could end,
Right.
the Broadway show could shut down, and now you're back to square one again.
Wow. And that's huge. I guess we never think about that for them, which, you know, really is a lot of why so many are having those battles because you really can't be settled because you may get an opportunity, but when that's over, you're starting back from square one with what's the next opportunity. So I
Yeah,
never
it's like
even thought
where's
about
the
that.
next gig? Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. So something that I am um very into, like it's something that I never really thought about until recently when I started, my business coaching and just starting to become somebody who's on social media. Something that was huge was the imposter syndrome and just how huge that is and how much that has an effect on people. So let's talk
Absolutely,
about that, and let's just talk about how it's often dressed in perfectionism, which I've
one
had to
hundred
ask
percent.
myself, like, is this perfectionist, me wanting to, do my best, or is this because I'm trying to compare myself to what other people are doing? So, how can artists begin to recognize that voice and begin to say, this is fear because of me trying to compare
Hmm.
myself versus me trying to be the better person? So, let's talk about that.
Yeah, that's a good point, and it's definitely you brought up a good point about perfectionism, and that's so true because it really can hold us back. I mean, perfectionism is what holds us back, and a lot of times everyone's trying to be so perfect and get everything right, they never get anything done. It's like no action is taken at the end of the day because we're waiting for that perfect moment. But it oftentimes is comparing ourselves to other people, but it's also the programming that we received growing up, maybe messages we got from teachers or from our family that may not have been directly like in a negative way, but somehow we picked it up in that way. So what I think a lot of times with that is we're operating on the script that I'm not good enough or I
Yeah.
need more training. I need more. Yeah, I can't start my coaching practice because I need, some extra classes, or I can't begin my acting journey until I take more classes.
Right, right.
And if you're operating from that space, the unfortunate truth is no matter how many classes you take, you're never going to be at that level until you take action.
Right.
So I procrastination is also another factor too that can with self doubt can lead to procrastination and even perfectionism because it's like we're sitting here spinning our wheels trying to get something, wanting to get something done, wanting it to be perfect, it never gets done. And then it's like, well, tomorrow I'll just work on it more, and then
Right.
tomorrow comes and we're still there.
Right. Right. I love that. And it's something, it's something that we all go through, but you have to just overcome that, and keep showing up, because I'm learning the more you show up, the better you're gonna get. You're gonna mature at it the more you show up. So it's not about being perfect at the moment anyway, and it's not about comparing yourself to the next person. So I love that. Let's talk about some things that's in your book. So in your book, you tie self-sabotage to identity. So why do so many artists subconsciously just block their own success?
Well, it's their identity. It's I'm a struggling artist. I'm a starving artist.
Wow.
I'm not that productive. It's like things like that, or I'm an out of work actor. And it's like you go to these events, you meet other people. Yeah, I'm an out of work actor. I can't find work. I can't do anything, or I'm starving. I'm struggling, and you then our mind is going to do everything it can to possibly maintain our identity.
Wow. That you've spoken out. They've spoken that
Yeah,
out.
exactly. You now spoke it
Yeah.
into an existence. So yeah, that's what's going to happen. So it's a lot of times just shifting your identity to I'm a professional working actor, or I'm a professional coach, I'm a professional whatever it is you're setting out to do. Because otherwise, it's like if you're going to say you're an out of work actor, well, that's what you're going to always going to be. You're always going to be that
Right.
because
Right.
you're tied into your identity. And so we have to really work on changing our identity, and that comes through coaching, and that comes through practice. It's just changing our fundamental core belief of who we are
Yeah.
and how we present ourselves. Because if we present ourselves again from a starving mindset, we're going to be operating at a deficient level, and
Wow.
therefore when if you're an actor on a deficient level, your auditions are not going to be as good as they can be. Your interviews are not going to be as good as you can be because you're still operating from this scarcity mindset.
Wow. That's good. That was really, really good. And I think, if you're in the audience and you're listening, it first starts with what are you speaking? What are you saying? I heard somebody say that you have to speak what you want your future to be. Like you have to speak that now.
And almost act as if it's happening.
Mhm.
So, and even for myself, when I was developing my agency, and people were asking me, what have you done? And I would always just say, I book people on film, I book people on TV, and that might not have happened yet, but I was like, I'm still going to operate from that
Right.
mentality. And I was telling people, yeah, I book people on film and TV. And about a month later, I had booked three primetime, slots for during my clients, and a week in the span of a week. So it's possible if you act as if. And there's a famous story of the actor Jim Carrey when he was kind of an up and coming actor. He wrote himself a check and dated it for 3 years in advance for $10 million.
Wow.
And every day, he took the check everywhere with him, and every day he looked at that check, and it was dated from 3 years, ahead of time. And he was just determined, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. And then, right around that time, when it was about to come to that 3 year period, he was offered the role in Dumb and Dumber, and it was a $10 million contract. So, there's a process. Now, maybe you won't. I don't necessarily know if you're going to make $10 million, but
But
I
you can
can tell
speak
you
it.
if you can speak that you're going to be successful, that you're going to have a successful practice, and not you will be. You are a this. It's
Yes.
not like I'll be the best coach after I have this training. No, you're the best coach now. You can still go for the extra training, but you're still that coach now.
Right now. Yeah, I love it right now. Like, yes, you have to speak those things as though they are like now. I love that.
Absolutely.
Yes. So the biggest fear for people is failure. That's everybody's biggest fear, you know.
Hmm. Right.
So how can someone reframe failure not as a verdict on their worth, but as a tool for growth? Like, how can we teach and train people failure
And
is
that's very important. And the important thing is that there's no such thing as failure, only feedback. And
mm,
we learn from things. That's what failure is, learning opportunities. If anybody, we all remember ourselves as children growing up, but if anybody's in here listening with parents or have worked with children, when they're the infants and toddlers, especially, they around the 9 or 10 month period, they have to learn to start to walk, and they'll stand up. And how many times do they fall down? At least several hundred times. A lot of times they'll fall down. They'll stand up, they'll fall down, and they may even get frustrated at the moment. But you never, in the history of mankind, have we ever seen an infant that says, "I quit,
right,
I'm done."
right,
They will eventually learn to walk, and that's how all of us learn to walk. If they can do it with walking, why do we have to be derailed? If
right,
we look at our failures the same way that we taught our infant children to look at, falling down after walking as a good thing.
wow.
And I remember even one time was like I grew up with a lot of nieces and nephews, and every time they would fall, we would clap. And they started when they would fall down, they'd look up, smile, and clap. And it's such a powerful metaphor. Like, why can't we look at our mishaps as the same way? Like, oh, okay, whoops, next time do that.
Yes.
And because the only way you're gonna get better at something is by doing it. As you know, as the coach, and you can read all these books about coaching and take all these seminars about coaching,
But
but you
not
really don't learn about coaching until you actually do it.
exactly.
Until you actually have a person in front of you that you're coaching, it's not going to happen. Just like a doctor's not going to learn how to do surgery by reading a book or watching a video. They're only going to learn by in residency and practicing. So that's the only way you're going to get better. There's no such. Rome was not built in a day, so you're not going to always get it right the first time, and that's
Exactly.
okay.
Yes. And
I
that is a
even
good lesson. Yes.
it's a great lesson. I mean, look at even podcast hosts, for instance.
Yeah.
They evolve over time. If you listen to like episode one of a podcast to like episode 500, it's going to be a completely different show.
Right.
And it's not because, oh, they were bad. They just that you evolve, you get better over time. So the important thing is just to get back up, dust yourself off, and keep moving.
And
Just
keep
like if
moving.
we learned to ride a bicycle as a kid. I'm sure we all, had a share if we fell down, got to scraped our knees, but we got up and we kept going. We didn't give
Yes.
up.
Yeah. It made
And
me
the
think
same,
of this little saying my husband says, keep moving forward and forward and forward. Like you just keep moving
of
forward and
course,
forward and forward. Yes.
and you
Yeah.
don't look back, and you don't look back, and you keep your mind on the finish line. And yeah, there's gonna be bumps in the road, but you keep your eye on the finish line.
Yes. Amen. Amen. So, what advice, because you have experience with artists. So, what advice will you give them when they come to you and they're like, I don't know about this. Like, I'm just thinking about quitting. Like, I'm doubting myself. I'm in a bad place. Like, I don't feel like I'm good enough. What advice would you give them to keep going?
Well, I mean, first thing we have to work on, like, is there something in their life happening also at the moment? Because maybe that needs to be dealt with too first. Now, if they've got all their pressures in life, then there's nothing wrong with, okay, taking a month or two of a pause to deal with whatever issues you're going to deal with. Like, I just had a client who had to take 2 months off because her mom, had pancreatic cancer. So
Wow.
that's understandable. To say, okay, I don't even want to, let's not even talk about guilt about taking time out. You need to be with your family. So the first thing is you take care of yourself, regardless. That's the first thing. Take care of your immediate needs. The second thing is I would kind of like get to where are you feeling it. Let's get to the origin of this, like the why.
Mhm.
Why are you feeling this way? Because generally, what happens, especially when we get into these negative loops, there's three powerful processes that's happened. It's called deletions, distortions, and generalizations. So we often distort the the negative.
Mhm.
We often delete the positive,
Right.
and we often generalize things to blow it out of proportion. So we try to correct all three. So let's look at the good things you've done. How many auditions have you booked? How many callbacks have you done? How many good reviews have you gotten? Let's talk about that. Okay,
Yes.
let's remember that. And then let's look at what's causing you. Is it because maybe there's a dry spell at the moment? Maybe there's stuff outside of your control, but if there is stuff in control, let's work on that. So maybe you might need to get new marketing materials. Maybe we need to revamp the way your package, your marketing package. That may need to be revamped. Maybe you need to get in some more classes again and get more polished in your technique. There's so many things that we can do. But the important thing that I really wish that all like fundamental acting trainings taught was the idea of grit and resilience, because that
Mhm.
are important qualities to be a really successful working actor is grit and resilience and being able to go into the long term thing for a
Yeah.
while.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Um, so with that, you talk about the inner critic. So what will you tell the audience when it comes to silencing that inner critic? Like, and what does that look like from day to day, and how do they replace that voice, with one that's rooted in truth and not in fear?
Well, the important thing is the if we look at the true nature of the inner critic, it may not be factually correct, but it's there to protect us. It's there to protect us from danger.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
thank the inner critic. I mean, this is where you can actually go on a deep, multi-level communication thing, and just thank the inner critic for like, okay, you're doing your job, but let's, help me get through this. I'm gonna be okay. And then is there something that maybe you need to improve on
Mhm.
that maybe you need to take a class in that or something in this specific area? So figure out what exactly is the critic saying. Because again, it could be in that pattern of deletion, distortion, and generalizations of, well, I'm just no good. I can't, I'm
Mhm.
not, no one's going to listen to me. I can't do this. And even one of the ways I overcome, because I had the inner critic when I was first writing my book of like, oh, no one's going to read this, no one's this and that.
Mhm.
And the one thing that I kind of really told myself was, well, if I don't write the book, I'm right. No one's going to read it. It's just not
Right.
written. So we're in agreement there. No one's going to read it if I don't write it. And even just like gently talking it through, having a dialogue, internal dialogue with yourself, saying, okay, well, you're saying no one's going to read my book. Well, how do you know that? Have you written a book before? Where's your proof? And so you just kind of like reframe and say, okay, well, worst case scenario, because a lot of times we going back to the whole distortion thing, we blow things out of proportion in our
Mhm.
mind about what could go wrong.
Right.
And even if we take the worst case scenario, I write my book and I get no sales. Well, at least I said I wrote a book. And so I think if we take what's the worst case scenario, and let's talk about that. Let's unpack that a bit.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Like always finding the positive, you know.
Exactly. And focus on the positive.
Mhm. And do you think that can start kind of shaping how the inner critic thinks as we're choosing to find the positive in things? That we kind of
Yes,
continue having the inner critic think like, we want it to think in that positive way.
absolutely. And let's use what rather than to maybe just inner feedback. What inner feedback do you have for us? And so rather than being critical of us, what feedback do you have for us? It's okay to be skeptical, to be kind of like always, look, jumping in with not jumping in with 2 feet at once, into opportunities. So let us focus on that, at least in that respect. Uh, yeah, the important thing is also I talk a lot about visualization. So the important thing is to always visualize it going well, because the
Right.
brain does not know the difference between fiction and reality.
Mm. Wow. 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 The brain does not know the difference between fiction and reality. It's up to us
Hmm.
to train that. Wow. So
Absolutely.
so what ending this podcast for my audience, like how can they find you? Like tell us, how can we find you, the name of your book, where they can get it from.
Sure. Well, the name of my book is called Rise Above the Script: Confronting Self-Doubt and Mastering Self-Sabotage for Performing Artists. It's on Amazon, and it's available as an ebook and also an audiobook. So it's where all audiobooks are sold. Um, you can go to my website, albertbramonti.com. It's under construction, but um, you can interact with me there. You can also find me on socials. I'm on Instagram, on LinkedIn. So feel free to connect with me. I'd love to continue having this conversation. I put out a lot of content, especially on LinkedIn. So feel free to follow me on there.
Awesome. So if you can leave them one more nugget, Albert, one more nugget, what would that be?
I would say just embrace your imperfection and just take action rather than focusing, well, someday I'm going to do this, well, someday I'm going to write the book, or someday I'm going to start this project. Take small action, because imperfect action is better than taking no action at all.
Wow.
Someday is not a day on the calendar.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I love it. Well, Albert, it has been great having
Thank,
you on the show, from the gutter to growth. And I just wish you continuous success.
thank
Um,
you, and thank you for having me.
yes, yes. And audience, until next time, y'all be blessed.
Thank you.